The reason that I do want to acknowledge that we have such a large array of local elected officials from the city, the townships, and the county in the room is because this is an issue that does not exist at one level of government, right? And we need to all work together to ensure that our drinking water is safe.
And so we are seeing the dioxane move. We're seeing it moving. Here's Dexter Ann Arbor Road. We've got Wagner Road. Into some of these areas, we're getting small detectable levels, and we're really worried about the well quality there of individual wells. So in Scioto Township and in the area I represent, what we're thinking about is the immense cost that it would take to put in water infrastructure, to put in city water infrastructure if our wells become unusable. And so that's a huge challenge, living that close to the highest particulate, and as well as how we source our water through individual wells.
We need to make sure the legislature and the executive branch are on board with that so they can tell our professionals at the DEQ that that is the plan that we want put forward for this community. Now, the political reality, as Yousef and others have said, is not exactly that right now. We got a long way to go, right? We got to change redistricting so we can get better people in office, so we can have greater control there. We got to win back the governor's office to make sure that we've got executive branch leadership that believes in these issues. Absolutely. In the meantime, we got to do what we can around mitigation because that's the mandate that this office has been set forth with. We're very fortunate. I don't know if Ellen Rabinowitz is still here. She's our public health officer with Washtenaw County. She and our water resources commissioner working hand in glove with the city, with the DEQ to make sure that the monitoring that we are doing, the cleanup that we are doing, is to the maximum extent that can be included inside that mitigation regime. And that mitigation regime is not what we want, it's what we got, right? So we're still pushing hard on that. Someone else was up here earlier talking about the realtor, the gentleman who's a realtor was talking about there are impacts right now on people's property values, right? Respectfully to CARD, whom I love, I was the commissioner who introduced the policy to create CARD back more than a dozen years ago, it feels like. I respect that we want this to be a polluter pay situation. It is much more complex than that, unfortunately. That's why we're in the lawsuit, right? There's a debate over who's responsible for this. In the meantime, we are paying for it every single day. We're paying for it in lost property values. We're paying for it in impacts on our public health. We need to make sure that if we want remediation, if we want that to be our standard, that we are also prepared to come to the table with resources to make that happen. And we can do that. I really, truly believe we can do that. As Jeff said, this is a tens of millions, and Mitch agrees, tens of millions of dollars problem, not billions of dollars. It's a problem we can solve. I can't talk to what's going on in the lawsuit. I can talk to what we can do as a community to be prepared for when that lawsuit comes to settlement or to fruition, to get a standard that is higher than mitigation and get this thing cleaned up to the standard that all of us want in this community.
Like we were talking about earlier. So your local elected officials, your state elected officials are on the same page with you. We want to make sure that this gets cleaned up. And that's what we talked about in those meetings, is to clean it up to basically as the best of a standard as we can. And so that's something that we're all trying to do. And there's local strategies for that. And one of those local strategies is legal. Because we got pretty much screwed last time around by a judge who decided that he was going to side with the company and give the company most of what they wanted. And that was partially because the DEQ was the only one in the room, and the city and the county and others were excluded from that.
I don't want to not say anything tonight. I think I'm as pissed off as everybody else is in this room. I have to admit that I was pretty frustrated 6 months ago when I said, what do you mean you can't talk about this? What do you mean you can't talk about this? Because your questions aren't going away, and people are afraid. And you are hearing about vapors coming in basements, and you are worried about your drinking water, and you are worried about it getting next to Barton Lake. And that's something we should never stop worrying about. We're here to commit to you that we're going to keep that transparency. We're going to keep asking questions, and we're not going to stop being part of the community, fighting to get this fixed once and for all. There aren't easy answers. If they were, we wouldn't all be in this very warm room tonight, as angry and as passionate as we are.
You cannot wave your hand at them and say, you have to pay. You have to get the lawyers involved. I'm not a lawyer, and it's frustrating as hell. But it has to happen. That is how you're going to get a polluter pays setup.